In this training, we're going to dive into the primary field, which is the leftmost field in your SmartSuite apps. So if that's of interest, stick around and let's get into it. Here we are in a SmartSuite app, a brand new one called Features. And the primary field is always located on the leftmost field for any app. The primary field follows a couple of special rules. You'll notice that by default it is named Title, but you can of course change that. Click on the field and go down to Modify Field Settings, and you can rename it here. This will be my renamed primary field. You'll notice that I can't change the type of this field. It is a primary field and there's no other way around it. But you have two options. You can either include manual input, where you're writing text to this particular field, or you can have this field automatically generated. You'll notice that you have two options, and these two options are true only for primary fields. We can require entries to be unique, meaning that somebody cannot create another field that is exactly the same as another record in this particular field, and/or we can require an entry in the field. So we can simply stipulate that this field must have text in it or some information, otherwise it's not possible to create that record. So let's go ahead and explore this just a little. By updating this field, you'll notice that I already have one field here called example. If I create another and I type example again and I try to leave, this particular field warns me that the primary field value should be unique. And the only way to get that done is to either remove that field entirely by removing the record, or to go back in and name it something else. You'll notice that even though this is different in the sense that I've included a capital E, it still follows that same rule and it won't allow me to create a field by that name unless I actually change something about it. It cannot be the same text regardless of capitalization. One fun thing about the primary field that's a bit unique to it comes into the expanded record. Let's open up this record and take a look here. We have our primary field, and by clicking on the action menu for that specific field, you'll notice that we have the option to allow it to span two columns. So we can take that primary field and have it encompass the entire width of the expanded record, or we can keep it reduced to just one column. I personally have some rules that I like to apply for any primary field. I generally like it to be as unique as possible, and that's more art than science in most cases. And I also like for it to identify what lives in this particular app. If it doesn't tell you what this particular record is, then it's not really serving its function as the primary or title field. So let's take an example of how we can use the second of the two options for the primary field. Here I have two example records, and example or examples doesn't really tell us a lot about the information that lives here. Let's give our primary field a little bit more meaning by actually adding a new field here. We can have, let's say, a text field where we fill out a company for this particular record. And so in this text field, we might say a couple of different companies. Once we've saved that up, maybe we're working with Acme, and we can have ZZYYXX as well. So now I have these two different companies that I'm working for, and maybe I want to bring that information into the primary field. So in an effort to do that, I can include that with other information in the record as well. For example, who these records are assigned to. I'll assign this record to Adam and this record to myself. And now I'm going to go in and use that second feature within the primary field where I can auto-generate this output. Say yes, I understand, because it's warning me that changes will be made here. And I can include different pieces from this app. So for example, I can look up that company element and bring it in, and maybe include a space, a dash, and a space. I'm just hitting those keys on my keyboard. And then I can bring in another element like the assigned to field. We're going to see that the names or the outputs of these fields are now automatically generated for us. We're taking the company and adding a space, a dash, and a space, and then bringing in the person who this record is assigned to. And this now allows these records to follow my two golden rules, which again, make it as unique as possible and help it identify the information that lives in this particular app. If you have any questions about what we covered in this training, please ask them below in the comments section of this video. And until then, we'll see you in the next training.